Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be looking into the question, does the person on your mind miss you? And if so, what are they going to do about it? There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Aventurine heart, along with this rendition of the Lover's card and the Eastern Ink tarot deck. Group 2 is the Rose Quartz heart, along with this rendition of the Lover's card and the Phantomwise tarot deck. And group 3 is the Clear Quartz heart, along with this rendition of the Lover's card and the Morgan-Greer tarot deck. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals and the cards to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. Chose the Aventurine heart, along with this rendition of the Lover's card and the Eastern Ink tarot deck. So I'm going to start with tarot to look into the initial question for this reading. Is the person on your mind missing you and the connection at this time? Okay, so we have the Knight of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Page of Swords, more air energy. And the Queen of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So you are definitely on their mind. They may be watching you from afar and they are seeing that you are actually surviving without them. You've had some kind of a glow up. You're looking happy, you're looking good. Even if you feel that you're very much in mourning, that you're very much missing them, they are perceiving you in quite the opposite energy. There's a sense of mystique and allure with this, to where they might be kind of at the process, sort of on the brink of considering communication, some kind of an apology that could be owed in this situation, that there's almost the idea of like racing thoughts with the Knight of Swords. A lot of jealousy might be stirred up as well. And it feels like this is something that is beyond just somebody who's kind of nostalgic and reminiscing on the times that you shared with one another. In some way, there's almost like a fly on the wall perspective, or something they've seen, something that they've heard that it's kind of piqued their curiosity. Maybe even just something they've sensed energetically speaking that has caused them to kind of put those feelers out, do a little bit of sleuthing, a little bit of research and investigation. If this is something where, you don't have social media, for example, but this was somebody that you are in physical proximity with, you live near each other in the same city, same town, same state, they may have actually kind of gone out of their way to do a little bit of that spying, sort of like driving by your house. They may have even like seen you out and about somewhere unbeknownst to you and were very taken by what they saw, very kind of shocked in a pleasant way by what they witnessed, from you, kind of emanating from you, energetically speaking. Any ways in which you've put some kind of effort maybe into changing your appearance, focusing on self-love, on healing, on just trying to enjoy your life as much as possible and pick up the pieces as a result of whatever happened between this person. This may be like a long-term separation between the two of you. Might have been a long time since you've talked to one another, and they're really seeing you as having blossomed, having come into your own, having overcome to a large degree some element of heartbreak or a sense of being kind of down and out, which might have been their impression of what would have been kind of the likely effect of the two of you kind of going your separate ways. So they may have been operating a little bit in sort of like pride or ego. Someone who might have really been thinking, oh, well, this person's probably still just at home crying over me. Certainly they wouldn't have been able to sort of move beyond the situation by now. That can really speak to being very torn up as well inside. A little bit of pride and ego, a little bit of being kind of torn up inside over what has happened, to where they may have almost been projecting upon you up to this point in time that you would be in that same boat as them, trying to carry on, but almost putting on the brave face, it not being very convincing energetically speaking. And so whatever they have seen either online or, again, kind of catching a glimpse of you, sneaking a peek of you, it's like a shocking surprise in a very sort of pleasant way that it feels like is really leading them into a space of feeling a little bit small with this Page of Swords here, in terms of they could have misjudged you, or again, that perception or projection that certainly you would still be at home and kind of balled up in the corner and crying, and maybe that is the case at times, but it feels that you've really put some sort of effort into picking up the pieces, trying to come to peace with all of this, moving on as much as possible, refocusing your efforts on other things, even if you've still been holding space for them and really missing them. In some way, there's been a shift within you, energetically speaking. That shift may have really, again, clued them in to sort of look into you, try to find out what's going on with you, and they've been pleasantly surprised by what they've seen. But feels like something, and I'm hearing it hit them like a ton of bricks. So again, they may not have been expecting quite as dramatic of a change in you as they have witnessed. It's a bit of sort of like knowing what they had now that it's gone, or it's almost that they're seeing you in a different light in some way. It's not just that they're seeing you as that you've put your pieces back together. You actually are glowing even brighter than you were before they, everything fell apart. This is even more of a radiance than, say, the early days of your connection with them, before everything went sour, before everything kind of unraveled and there were broken pieces to deal with. This is a sense of you look better than ever. You've maybe really come into your own. You've been focusing on and prioritizing, personal sovereignty, maybe building abundance for yourself in other ways. You may have made some pretty dramatic changes in your life, physically, energetically speaking, in terms of your priorities. Some way in which you're standing in your personal truth, and it is making them perceive you in a light that they had not comprehended you in before, that you weren't standing in this version of you. It's almost the idea of, with this Queen of Wands, like a butterfly having emerged from the cocoon, and they have caught a glimpse of this, and it feels like it's really drawing them in close. It's like it's the moth to the flame here, but then again, this racing thoughts and a bit of sort of like, well, what do I, the Page of Swords, have to say or offer to somebody who's in their Queen of Wands energy? A little bit fearful of kind of maybe your response or a reaction, depending on, kind of the circumstances of what fell apart between the two of you. They're a little uncertain, not just because of past events, but almost sort of because of the stance that you're in right now, your personal power, this glow up that you've undergone, that you may not tolerate even the most congenial efforts on their part. There's a sense of feeling a bit of intimidation by that, but they can't look away. So kind of lurking, kind of hiding in the shadows. Definitely if this is something where they've caught a glimpse of you online, they may be following you from a fake profile, or just kind of, Googling you every day and looking up the pictures, may have things kind of saved on their phone, or just in any way in which they're able to really access you and kind of catch that one-on-one glimpse. If you've got some kind of social media platform and they're able to watch content, or again, just sort of look at things that you post, they're going out of their way to do this on almost like a regular and reoccurring basis. And with that is the energy of sort of like a fascination, something about their opinion of you having changed. And it's really leading to the idea of they're seeing you with a fresh light. So this feels like more than just nostalgia. It's almost like new possibilities are open. Who you have grown into, which is really mirroring or reflecting to them, even it feels like some harsh truths about work they may need to do, ways in which They had, again, underestimated you, and now they're feeling in a position of it's almost a little bit of being left behind. Sort of, what do I have to bring to the table in this situation as well? There is an energy here, though, of motivation. This might be kind of just what they needed to see and experience to really get them into gear, as far as cutting away some things that don't serve them, maybe habits in their life that they have been procrastinating, kind of evolving beyond, any kind of like toxicity, or even sort of a limited or a lack mentality. It's really becoming clear. Your energy is sort of shining back to them. It's reflecting back to them as ways in which they sort of are standing in their own way, dimming their higher potential, their light in many different ways, how they've been kind of inauthentic with themselves, inauthentic with you. So it feels like a lot of kind of just in their head with these two swords cards right here, watching you, seeing you. It sets those wheels in motion. There's a lot of thoughts going on here. Both this kind of like yearning, this magnetism. They can't look away. They keep being drawn back into you. And with this is a sense of kind of like, I miss what we had with one another in the past, but this person is now very different from the one I left behind, or from who they were when we parted ways with one another. So it's a sense of kind of understanding that some door to the past, which they may have taken for granted and assumed would always just be accessible to them, when and if they chose to sort of open those lines of communication again, there's a sense of your elevation has essentially cemented off possibilities that were easier for them before. A way of relating to you that they might have taken for granted would just, again, like always be the case. And so it's really bringing to them the sense of, yearning, but also this kind of understanding of, I need to get my life together in some way. I need to kind of increase the caliber of what I would be communicating, what I would be presenting. It's almost like they're wanting to sort of clean up their act in some way, or it's motivating them to be a little bit self-critical, kind of encouraging them. It's drawing them to the point of sort of rising beyond limitations within themselves. So it goes a little bit beyond nostalgia. It's kind of just, it's wonder and amazement. They're seeing that you look really good, you look really healthy, you look really happy. Again, even if you feel like it's a struggle to do that every single day or on a regular basis, they're seeing you in a very different light. This is something, auric. This is something about a glow, an internal kind of radiance that is rippling out. So regardless of how you're perceiving yourself, there has been some profound effect, some profound aha moment that now has this person's gaze very acutely fixed upon you, sort of watching from the shadows, and a sense of, I would like to approach, but I am understanding that there are things which need to evolve within me and also kind of be left behind in order to be able to sort of carve out a new path in the direction of moving closer into proximity with you. So let's take a look and see what, if anything, they're going to do about this energy of being really wowed by you, being really, fascinated, very amazed, and these are very positive energies right here. This is, it's a sense of kind of, this might have been the motivation that they needed to make some changes for themselves. They feel to be very happy for you, for where you seem to be at this point in your life, where you seem to be at this point in your journey. And again, if they were kind of taking for granted before that it would always just be an open door policy for them, there's a bit of taking this a little more seriously now. There is this motivation to either make things right or kind of come back into proximity with you, instigate or initiate something with you that almost is deeper, more intense, or more serious than it might have been before. That's kind of the nature of what these thoughts are, what is being inspired or stirred within them by the fact that they have kind of taken note of you in your present energy. So let's see what, if anything, they're going to actually do about this. Okay, so we have volcano, volatility, DNA, karma, loyal heart, and fork in the road. So this DNA karma, this is definitely speaking about the idea again that they are recognizing it's going to take some unraveling of a previous version of themselves, something that is needing to really kind of be loosened and at the same time enhanced before they are able to move towards you. So this speaks to a lot of plans and preparations behind the scenes. This is something that almost feels like any kind of movement or action touching ground on these thoughts and these words that they are kind of contemplating at this point in time, the prelude to that. So the next layer of that is really looking at themselves. What do I need to do in order to feel better about me to now meet this person at their new frequency? Which definitely could be some positive and long overdue changes. There is a sense of pressure with this volcano and volatility. Again, it ties in with like Queen of Wands energy. They're deeply magnetized to you. They're seeing you, kind of on this upward swing in your personal narrative arc. And there's a sense of not wanting to miss out on an opportunity with you. If you're single and available at this time and they're aware of that, there's a sense of pressure of like that most likely will not last very long. If they're seeing you in this energy, certainly other people will notice that. There's a presumption that there may be other suitors or competition for them already at this point in time. Maybe there are people or a person that you're talking to that they are also aware of, that is really kind of, it almost feels that it's bringing forth a lot of kind of jealousy. There's a competitiveness here of, okay, I now need to get to the process of kind of trying to fast track some of the work that they maybe should have been doing on themselves while in a period of separation, in order to be able to kind of best the competition, bring forth something that might be an offer or kind of an opener to reestablishing communication between the two of you before some window of opportunity like permanently shuts for them. There's a sense of perception that if you're available and single, you won't be for long. And then further than that, because of kind of the way in which you're carrying yourself at this point in time, what your priorities are, what your life looks like, at least as far as what they've been able to sort of glean and decipher from what they're seeing, what they're able to research. There's a sense of kind of like you're definitely headed toward forever partnership, high vibrational partnership. There may even be someone they're perceiving energetically around you, or somebody that they're able to really sort of, again, through this process of kind of spying, fly on the wall, sort of like sleuthing energy, they may be identifying a particular person, or a couple possible candidates of people that like, ooh, this could be high level soulmate for this person. I better act quick, or most likely these other people are going to kind of swoop in, seal the deal. And then that's it for me. That's curtains. And then I'm kind of just left in this energy of watching from afar and wishing. So this idea here with fork in the road, it speaks to kind of like self-restraint at this point in time. Again, there's a pressure here. There's an understanding of, if this has, especially if it's been a long-term separation, that they've kind of delayed long enough this inevitable progress that needs to be made. It actually feels like this, seeing you and kind of getting this spark, this pop, this kind of wow moment that they've had, this may be something that has really catalyzed them to actually start to get to work on some of the elements within themselves that they've needed to face and address: karmic patterns, toxicity within, behaviors, how they were showing up in love and partnership, their relationship with themselves, just any number of things that might have been part of sort of your original soul contract with one another. And in the time that you've been apart, you've been doing your work, and they've kind of just been going through the motions of the same old. Now they're understanding, though, that the incentive, the motivation, it's hit them in a certain level of kind of what, energetically speaking, what the reward is for them individually and in terms of what's possible for the two of you, if they actually get to work at sort of doing some of these things they've been procrastinating about. So regardless of kind of if they make it to that finish line in time, or kind of get to that point where they're able to bring something forth, it feels like overall this experience, real time, where they're in right now, this is a very positive catalyst forward for them in their own kind of personal healing and growth journey. This is the kick that they needed. This is kind of that tower moment that they needed. It was witnessing you in this changed energy that is now kind of bringing this wave back crashing onto them of sort of like, you need to pick up the pace on the work that you have to do within yourself, or you're going to miss this opportunity. And further, there's almost this, you represent some kind of highlight of potential of, regardless of the outcome between the two of you, sort of like this is a vibration one can strive for, and there are a different quality and caliber of kind of potential partners or, romantic relationships that are available on this elevated frequency, but it requires that work of kind of breaking free from personal patterns in order to reach that place. So it's very inspirational energy. It's a lot of motivational energy. They're holding themselves back. They're restraining. It's a lot of sort of like, should I, shouldn't I? Is it the right time? Is it not the right time? It feels like what they're going to do about it is kind of go within and almost try to do a quick surface clean as much as possible. It doesn't feel like they're going to, do that full, they're going in for some deep dive shadow work. It's going to take them years to get to this point of like, I feel ready. Now I'm going to bring something. It feels like they're going to start kind of dealing with some of the more nuanced or surface layers of things. Something along the lines of kind of like they say it takes 30 days to break a habit. Things that are very sort of noticeable in terms of obvious kind of material coping mechanisms. This feels like something that'll be a goal. That's a manageable goal of kind of like if they smoke, for example, okay, I'm gonna quit smoking, and at the end of 30 days, that's something that I can present to this person of like, I've changed this about my life. Or if it's drinking, for example, same thing. I'll dry out, and then I'll be able to present something different to this person. If it's, third party situations, for example, this also feels to be something that it's kind of moving into the process of sort of, as much as they want to best the competition in your life, they're wanting to kind of close the door on some loose ends within their life that this feels like someone who may have kind of just kept a lot of possible open doors in their existence, sort of juggling a lot of people, juggling a lot of things. And this circumstance, what they've seen, this kind of motivation here, it's really bringing home to them the fact that they need to kind of get very serious about sort of what they're giving their attention to, what they're investing in. They're needing to sort of pool all their energetic resources so that they're not sort of stretched so thin, trying to just sort of go through the motions that everything's okay, and yet vibrationally they're still at the same level that they were when the two of you parted ways. And so it feels like the quickest solution that they can think of at this point in time is sort of like taking their power back in the form of not investing in things that are very clearly sort of like energy drains or are very clearly, unhealthy kind of patterns and habits. This can be somebody that starts like a workout routine, for example. They change their diet, they eliminate junk food, they start kind of like getting out and walking every day or, exercising, something of that extent to where pretty quickly within like a month or 2 months, they would have something to where they can reach out and they've already done some degree of self-improvement. There feels to be some kind of awareness it's going to require more than that to sustain and kind of meet and match your level. Whatever they're aware of, whatever you've kind of been very public about or that they've been able to hear about as far as the depth and nature of change within you, even if that's all kind of just private business for you, they're aware that it's more than just you decided to start drinking more water every day, or you're getting a good night's sleep, or you're spending more time out in nature, things like that. It's obvious that you've done some core work within yourself, and so they're aware that kind of getting their foot in the door requires sort of that surface level clean. Staying in the proximity of you, if you choose to kind of let them back in or sort of entertain them in that kind of surface level, I've cleaned up my act a little bit sort of energy, it's going to require more of a deep dive than that. So it's almost the idea of like a task list, like to-do list for this person. And it feels like very immediately it's work on themselves to at least make themselves presentable with like obvious things that were sort of obstacles between the two of you in the past, or obvious things that would sort of bar them access to your life at this point in time. It feels to be something that they want to come to you in a single energy, in an available energy, without kind of all these different sort of storylines storylines and narratives going on. So that's something that it feels like that they'll start to do over the course of the next, like, probably 30 days to 2 months, is sort of closing these things up, moving away, sort of clearing out the energy of that. So then they're able to kind of bring forth something to you that is like, okay, I'm on the same level as you. I'm on par with you now. I'm ready to start building very exclusively and consistently with you, and not just promises of I'll end these situations or I'll change these certain things about myself, but it's almost the evidence of these are the things that I've done. I've come equipped with this kind of progress so far. Is there a potential for us to work with this? So they do plan on making a move towards you, but it's after some kind of period of sort of shallow level transformation within them. But it's not because they're wanting to be shallow. They just, again, time feels to be of the essence here. They've got this pressure to act in a certain way, and so it's kind of, as much as they need to be sort of presentable, clean themselves up a little bit just in terms of those surface level aspects, enough to kind of get in closer proximity as they then sort of plan to dive deeper into that in kind of the months that follow. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see, what does this person want to tell you at this time. Okay, and they say, will you open up your heart again to me? So again, this recognition and uncertainty here. Do they have what it takes? Is it too little, too late? Have you changed and evolved and grown so far beyond them that all hope is lost? They're not sure. And so it's very important to kind of at least make that surface level package a little more presentable, a little more appealing than sort of where they're currently at, what is currently part of their reality, what they're investing their time and energy into, in order to make a good kind of second first impression to you. And they also say, never felt anything like this before. So this really talks about the element of like the motivation here. It's a sense of that they recognize a very powerful and profound change has happened within you, energetically speaking. And this may have even been something that, like this volcano volatility, it's really sparked this kind of like wow moment, this sort of shocking awareness of the potential they'd overlooked in you and in this situation, bigger kind of aspects and elements of sort of the nature of your connection with one another, kind of bigger soul level themes here. Maybe the two of you were intended to kind of awaken one another, to clear out some karma that you each had personally in order to be able to up level as individuals, and experience kind of a higher level love. And it's almost something where you were awakened by this connection. They chose to remain asleep. You've done the work. You've had the glow up. Now they're waking up. Now they're kind of aware of like, okay, I need to make up for lost time in this situation. And so all that feels very, very overwhelming. It's also the idea of there's a lot that they need to do. There's a lot of lost time to make up for within themselves and in the dynamic between the two of you. And so it's kind of like, what can they do in a relatively speaking quick amount of time to at least provide you with some evidence that they are a changed person. They also say, I'm still stuck. So again, that speaks about kind of work that they needed to do within themselves, shadow work that has been deferred. They're still stuck in a loop. They're still stuck in some patterns. But it feels like at this point in time, they're really setting into motion, again, like manageable bite-sized chunks of what they can do, sort of like coping mechanism, toxic habits, things that are very obvious that maybe needed to have been mitigated, minimized, or cut entirely out of their life long ago, making better choices for themselves, in terms of like material 3D things. This feels to be the main focal point at this point in time of what they're going to start with, and kind of with the intention of going deeper from that point on. They also say, love scares me. So this feels to tie into the idea of the potential of what they see that you have grown into, or that you have glowed into, rather, that this is something that both allures them and frightens them. It's the idea of, on so many levels, and even if you feel that your life is very much similar, the same, it's not a whole lot has changed, they see something within you energetically. You radiate something very different. You put off a different air, a different aura, a different glow. and it's something that is very alluring to them, but it also is bringing up, it feels like a lot of kind of primal fears of the unknown. Sort of, they're enticed, they want to glow like you do, but they understand that it is going to it requires kind of shedding a version of themselves that they have been stuck in, that they have been comfortable in, that it's kind of been how they've been operating through the world in life and in love, for quite some time. And that, again, beyond sort of the surface level things that need to be cleared, there is this understanding that, you know, you may be at the point in your personal journey, you're not just going to settle for surface level. And so if they want to really reach you consistently, be a measurable part of your life, best the competition, be one of those kind of candidates for your heart, you know, they're going to have to dive in deep. They're going to have to go into the place that scares them, that emotional vulnerability. That might have been sort of the breaking point between the two of you in the past, and they're aware that it's something they're going to need to face in order to be able to kind of make substantial change in the situation. They also say I'm a lost soul, so they may be dealing with a bit of lack mentality at this time. This is that kind of Knight of Swords to Page of Swords energy where they see you, they see kind of where you're at vibrationally or where your life is at, and it is making them feel that they've kind of missed out on an opportunity. They're sort of wandering around in the dark. They're lost. They don't know where to begin with the changes that need to be made. So definitely something to where at least that surface level cleanup of their life feels to be a very productive step in the direction of building sort of a healthy self-image, healthier habits, to kind of raise that vibration a bit out of kind of this energy of darkness that they're holding on to. And they also say my past is dark and weighs me down. So regrets, things of the past, habits that have not been serving them for quite some time that they know that they need to release, they need to let go of. This may have been work they've been deferring for quite some time, but they have this refreshed motivation, a renewed sense of purpose here to kind of do these things. And it's, you know, coming with this energy of, because they are wanting to be able to at least present themselves as an option for this new you, as kind of a relevant candidate to reintroduce themselves into your life at this point forward. They also say you are my empress. So you really represent, you know, all four queens in the deck. And it's not just the magnetism of the Queen of Wands. This is something where, you know, it's feeling like the safe space. They're seeing that you got your head on right. You're in a good headspace. Your priorities are well aligned. You're very abundant in your energy or in how you're kind of structuring your life at this particular point in time. They see you as, you know, instead of kind of being hardened by this situation, you have instead sort of alchemized the pain of what has happened, you know, with them and maybe other things in your life. You really turn that into a source of power. They're almost seeing you as somebody who is now, you radiate more love than you did before. You've really taken this journey seriously. You have poured all of that love you were hoping to give to them that, you know, they weren't ready to receive or that they had rejected in the past. You poured that onto yourself, and it has created very positive results. You know, you're looking better than ever, and it's really, it's calling this person, it feels like, to step into their emperor mode, to be very proactive in the process of kind of no longer getting in their own way as much as they used to before, and kind of being very stern with themselves about certain things that need to change, where in the past they may have just been kind of leaning into the shadowy energies and kind of letting a lot slide in their life, just overlooking things that have needed to change for quite some time. But now there is this desire to kind of, you know, they understand they can't come to you in the Knight of Swords energy, they can't come to you in the Page of Swords energy. They're needing to come as an empress or an emperor, you know, or don't come at all, basically. And so it's a process of sort of picking themselves up, dusting themselves off, and you know, really gearing up to make some profound, even though they're surface level, profound changes in order to be able to present themselves to you as sort of like, I'm working on things. This is the progress I've made so far. Will you entertain me in your life again? So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got F, A, F, T, A, B, G, Y, S, H, H, K, P, M, Y, L, U, N, Q, and D. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. Chose the Rose Quartz Heart, along with this version of the Lover's card and the Phantomwise Tarot. So let's start by looking into the question, is this person missing you? Are they nostalgic about you and the connection? Okay, we have the King of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. King of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And Temperance, which is Sagittarius. So with this King of Wands and the King of Cups, it's coming through yes, but you would never know it. This feels like somebody who's really good just in their life in general of putting on a very brave face even when they are feeling very chaotic or kind of at odds with themselves. They are very good at kind of retreating within, sort of having their public life or their persona and then what goes on behind closed doors. They're applying that same sort of strategy, which may have been kind of an issue in this connection with you, sort of an inability of them to open up very deeply into love and partnership and romance and into vulnerability. You know, some pretty strong kind of barriers around the heart that they may have had that sort of limited the longevity of the connection. May have led to trust issues is coming through here. So something where just sort of an energy of kind of withdrawing into themselves may have really sort of instigated or sparked kind of uncertainty of like, are they holding something back? What are they holding back? Why aren't they communicating? Why aren't they telling me how they feel? This may have even been somebody with kind of like a wandering eye, or they were really attractive, they got a lot of attention, and instead of kind of going out of their way to sort of make you feel calm and at ease that you were what they want, you know, that they were really fixated and focused on the connection with you in the past, it almost feels that fed into their pride or ego a little bit. They sort of use that energy of a personal magnetism to their benefit in kind of a shadowy way that may have, again, sort of triggered or elicited some jealousy within you. If you didn't find yourself ordinarily to be a jealous person, it almost feels that this person's actions or their attitude or their energy may have really sort of sparked some inherent nature of jealousy within you that is not normally brought to the surface. With that being said, it almost feels to be in a way that they're using the fact that yes, it's not even so much nostalgia. It feels like there's still a very profound desire for you. It's like a hunger almost, but they may almost be sort of using this as kind of the, yes, I'm missing you, but you'll never know it, as kind of a source of personal power. feeling that they hold all the cards in this situation. So this may be where they have blocked off communication, they've ghosted, and it's almost the idea of sort of they put this connection on the back burner, but very knowingly. They're still sitting in the same energy. They're still holding the same stance of kind of like, I know exactly what I'm doing in this situation. I'll kind of break the silence. I'll break the ice when and if I choose to in this circumstance. So it feels to be something that rather than kind of like pining or yearning for you in this situation, they're almost, it may even be something where they're really just taking for granted, almost thinking that you'll just wait for them forever, or that they could still sort of harbor or sit in more of these ego-based energies, and the circumstances, if and when they chose to do something about that, would change or sway according to their will. So this feels to be somebody with kind of, emotional blocks within themselves, work that they need to do, to kind of, maybe the universe needs to humble them a bit, or there's a need to kind of dissolve that ego, move into more of a place of sort of equal give and take. This almost feels to be where they've kind of almost deliberately shut themselves off to giving and are only purely on sort of receiving mode. So they're leaning into a bit of narcissism within themselves. It's possible they're a full-blown narcissist, but it almost feels to be just kind of a learned behavior or a mechanism that is kind of hiding or sheltering some sort of pain within that they've never dealt with. And so it's just kind of, it might even be something where they've experienced some kind of heartbreak and sort of vowed to themselves, I'll never let anybody in that close ever again to hurt me. And so they kind of took the opposite route. Instead of sort of choosing the path to heal, the path of light, they've kind of descended into their personal darkness. They've sort of cloaked themselves in their own shadow, and they seem to still be operating in that same energy right now. They're carrying on business as usual. They feel very much in control of the nature of how deeply they will allow themselves to scratch beneath the surface of their feelings for you. What that really means. There's an energy of kind of a lack of self-reflection with this, that again is kind of, it's sort of how they were operating in whenever things fell apart between the two of you. It's like nothing's really changed in that capacity. They still are feeling very much that they're in the right, that there's no need to sort of budge or yield on their part. Yes, there are feelings for you with this King of Cups, but it's almost something that it's bringing to mind almost something within a glass case that says break in case of emergency, like sort of taking for granted that, further down the road, this connection would be available still for them to, tap into, and for them to kind of revive, or for them to show up again when the time is right. But it's a very self-focused energy at this particular point in time. It's the idea of kind of these regular reminders of you, almost very deliberately. They may have like photos saved on their phone, or if they're able to sort of see you on social media, for example, they may periodically check in. It feels almost as a way to test themselves, test this like hard exterior, this resolve of, yes, I'm still in control of my emotions. Yes, I have, something deep for this person stirred within me, but I have the upper hand. I have control in this situation. And they're not allowing themselves to kind of soften into a place of dealing with or healing whatever it is has caused them to kind of act this way or react this way. It may have even been something where things were going really well with you and they got triggered. Some kind of old wound within them got triggered, and it's almost like an iron wall went up. They put themselves in a fortress, and they're still very much sort of like sitting in that, in kind of in an energy of not being able to kind of budge, and at the same time a little bit kind of, they're both defensive and offensive with this. They still have not recovered or kind of moved out of the sort of fight or flight mode. They're both fighting these feelings, and they're kind of continuing to just hold that stance of retreat at this particular point in time, as far as you and the nature of this connection goes. So you're still within their heart, but it's not in the sense of kind of like, I'm yearning for this person, and the mind is kind of going into sort of forward thinking and how do we make this situation right. it's still kind of just this holding pattern, this long-term holding pattern. They're still very much kind of up in arms against the nature of their feelings, or it feels like against the prospect of kind of reopening to this, or letting you in deep. They're still kind of operating from that wounded and sort of self-focused, self-directed energy at this time. So with that in mind, I'm gonna take a look and see what they, if anything, they're gonna do to kind of come out of this very guarded stance. Sort of what change might be on the horizon in this capacity, or what's kind of the yield of this stance that they're holding right now. Okay, so we have lotus flower, unfoldment, fire, passion, breathe, and flexible. So this fire energy is really bringing to mind more of that King of Wands sort of energy, which in this stance, rather than kind of like being very assertive and going after what they want, drawing that in toward them, or taking very proactive steps, it's almost the idea of kind of, they're playing with fire in terms of this hope or this guarantee, or banking on that you will just continue to be on the back burner where they left you, available for them when and if they kind of choose to move towards you and provide something different. This idea of flexible speaks to kind of just taking their time with things, kind of leaning maybe ever so slowly in the direction where of you, that it almost feels the only thing that would be discernible would be energetically speaking. You might kind of feel this pressure from them. If it's been something where energetically it's either been kind of hot and cold, and you've been in kind of this cold state right now, you may start to really sense their energy around you. It feels to be something that they kind of know what they're doing. They're almost opening up that energy, directing thoughts of a certain nature towards you, in the sense of almost trying to keep you hooked, keep you available, test that temperature, or in some way give a little something that in the hopes that it almost kind of like keeps you waiting, keeps you there, keeps you patient, keeps sort of this connection or this energetic bond kind of, it might be embers, but it keeps it alive in some way. Maybe this is something that you've been in kind of this long-standing situation with this person in this capacity, and they almost may be somebody who's familiar with kind of how energy works, or they're sensitive or psychic or intuitive enough. They're clued in enough. There's more than meets the eye here. There's more than they've revealed, or maybe even things that they were kind of well versed in or familiar with as far as energy and soul connection, that they just never revealed to you, things that they have kind of come to understand in the time since you've moved your separate ways, to where it's almost like they're wanting to just sort of, again, give a little to keep you hooked in this situation, as may have really worked in the past, where it could have been, like months where everything's cold. You're not feeling their energy, and kind of right at that point where you're getting ready to just sort of release or redirect your focus, here they come again, sort of swooping in the form of dreams, or you're feeling their energy, or the signs and synchronicities increase. It almost feels to be something that, through kind of meditation, they connect with you, they connect with your higher self. This may be something that they do, but it doesn't feel to be coming from a place of sort of like, I'm longing, but I'm too afraid to kind of bring forth anything to you. This is all I can provide at this point. It feels like this person's still operating in a lot of ego right here, and a lot of distortion. And so again, it's something where they kind of just are intending to sort of keep you interested, keep you intrigued, keep themselves relevant in some way in your energy, or in your kind of attention, giving just a little to kind of make sure that you're still there and you're still hanging on. The idea of lotus flower and unfoldment and it ties in with kind of the temperance energy and breathe. All of these right here speak to just more of taking this time. It's like a slow sort of oozing in your direction, but without the intention or without really the follow through of providing clarity about their motives for any of this, their behavior up to this point in time, whatever nerve had been touched upon, whatever had triggered them that had caused them to sort of retract or put up this iron wall, kind of go into revert into this hyper ego mode within them. There's not a sense here, at least in the immediate context of this reading, of them opening up in any sort of measurable way about that. It feels the most that they're going to do is kind of push their energy more into your energy field, kind of insert themselves just a little bit to kind of hopefully entice you or keep you waiting. This may even be somebody who could have thought the grass is greener elsewhere, and they're not done sort of exploring that. They're not done looking. They're not entirely sure that they're ready to sort of step into the place of being that equal and reciprocal partner to you. Which is if a person feels they need to explore, everybody has their kind of their own prerogatives here, but it feels like a big gamble that they are making, that you'll always just kind of wait. Maybe you have been waiting very consistently, very loyally, something where there may have even been a bit of codependency going on in this situation, and they kind of have used that to their advantage. They definitely are leaned into their shadow side at this time, and it feels like they're still in that kind of arc of leaning into more of that shadow side, to where it almost might be something that in order to exact true change in this situation, it feels like you might need to be the one to do that, rather than whatever the nature of your responses are to this person. Even when you feel their energy sort of coming towards you, you may be very welcoming of that. You may be very yielding. You may let that in. It may require you kind of fighting fire with fire in this instance, and kind of putting up your own iron wall, where that sort of snaps the energy back to them and makes it clear that things have changed. That same dynamic is not necessarily welcome. For some of you, this may even tie into with this idea of like passion and kind of this energetic movement towards you. It may be that they show up with just kind of sort of like a Casanova energy, a little bit of like a Knight of Wands. Like they come in pretty quickly with sort of the same story, the same kind of pickup line, the same way in which they have consistently, maybe over the course of your dealings with one another, they've been able to sort of come back around into your world, into your reality, but maybe for things that are more just passion based, and then they're out again as quickly as they've come in, to where again, in order to generate sort of measurable change in this situation overall, it feels that your tactic needs to change, your response to this person needs to change, rather than kind of having that open door, that open portal. It may be something where this is an encouragement for you to kind of set better boundaries, be non-responsive. If they do happen to text, kind of like the late night texting, for example, this might be something, and they're popping up out of nowhere, kind of, checking in, just making sure you're still sort of there, opening up those lines to where you're having that kind of, physical connection with one another, but they're still clearly not in the place of being able to give emotionally. This may be a really good opportunity for you to kind of change the narrative in this story. It's the idea of kind of nothing changes if nothing changes, and it feels like this person needs some sort of tower moment. They need something to happen, something that is kind of, because they feel like they've identified some pattern in this situation, or they feel that they are in control of some pattern in this situation, and so they almost need to be kind of shown or instructed that things have changed, things have shifted. What was always kind of known or predictable, what was the status quo, what was sort of the power dynamic in this situation, that power is being taken back. Unless there's something more, something measurable that can be provided or presented, then it's kind of, there's not going to be sort of breathing life into more of this sort of cycle of like a push-pull dynamic, or like a hot-cold runner chaser, something of that nature. So it feels like more of the same of what you've kind of been experiencing. Maybe, they come in sort of quick, kind of they're coming in for a good time, not a long time, and it feels to be very intentional. This isn't just, I'm ready to kind of open up and then I get scared and run again. It's that they're coming back in, trying to test the water, waters, trying to see, are you still hooked on this situation? And so this might be a really good opportunity to kind of take some steps in a new direction for yourself, as far as, reclaiming some of your personal power from this situation. And it might be something also that is a very profound teaching tool for them. They may be somebody who's not really used to people telling them no, or at least in this situation, you've been very yielding up to this point in time. And so you hold a lot of power to sort of shift that dynamic between the two of you, to teach through your actions that you've changed, and therefore they need to change if they want to kind of be part of your world, if they want to be part of your reality. And so that can either be something which happens, without sort of spoken word. This can just be something that happens energetically speaking, where you're not as accepting of that, or maybe, you refrain from kind of tapping into them, during your meditations, or sort of you feel that influx of them energetically, and that might really snowball into you. Then, you're watching a lot of readings, you're sort of like, when are they coming back around? You end up kind of pouring a lot energetically into them by virtue of the fact that energy flows where attention goes. And in some way, they're aware of this. They've become aware of this, at least in the dynamic between the two of you, to where it's almost like they need to come in for their fix. It's kind of, it's a bit of toxicity is kind of what this is really speaking to. And so this may be something where you need to kind of cut off their supply in order for you to kind of heal from this experience, you to just kind of like have a breather from this experience, because they really haven't changed very much within. So it's kind of, it's the idea of it's not really possible at this point to experience something different, because there needs to be an alteration in kind of how the situation is dealt with, and they need some sort of change needs to happen in terms of how they are approaching matters of the heart, how they are approaching you. This idea of kind of like they have feelings but they never let you know, and a sense of almost wanting to have control in the situation. There's no place for that in healthy and reciprocal love. And so it's something where they almost need to be sort of taught that change is necessary in that situation if they want to continue this, by you kind of doing something different than how you've responded to this in the past. If it's something where, maybe you get that kind of that sort of late night text from them, or they're reaching out in that same sort of energy, the familiar pickup lines, things of that nature, to just kind of try to get back in the door. A little bit of crocodile tears that they may be crying as well, just whatever they need to do to sort of get in the door for a very specific purpose. This again might be sort of the opportunity for you to be the one to break cycles in this situation. Possibly in the future this can yield a healthier dynamic between the two of you, but it feels very crucial to kind of truly have a breather from one another. There's something that needs to kind of be healed and evolve beyond for both of you, in terms of what this dynamic with one another has really brought forth from inside of you, the archetypes of what's been playing out here, and the residue, for you, of kind of being put through the ringer of this unpredictability here, and for this person to kind of heal whatever motivates them from inside, whatever hurt within is kind of causing them to just sort of push away the depth of love in the interest of just more of these surface-based passionate energies, even at the expense of knowing that it's hurting someone else emotionally. They feel very aware that you have feelings for them, that this feels to be a known fact, and they are harboring feelings within for you as well, but there's a disconnect from that. It's like they're just staying in ego, and there needs to be kind of being brought down into the heart space that you seem to have some more power in the situation to be able to exact that change for them. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see what they want you to know at this time. They say, we were two peas in a pod. So there is a recognition within themselves that in some way they're squandering an opportunity. They're gambling in this situation and kind of playing with fire by just assuming that a connection which had the potential to blossom into something very beautiful will always just be there. That this is something that, you know, by kind of like that idea of kind of a pea in the pod and just sort of, you know, keeping the heart on lockdown within themselves. There is an acknowledgement here of, you know, these emotions which were stirred, but it's like uncracked potential in this situation. It's something which they're still kind of guarding that. They're keeping that within. It's not totally off the books, off the possibility for them, but kind of the way in which they're approaching it at this point, it's almost like they're squandering that. And they also say, I admit I was wrong and strong. So again, that idea of really pride and ego being an interference in this situation. It's the idea of, yes, I've got these feelings, but you'll never know about it. I'm not ready to express these things. They're still holding on very tightly to some kind of distortion, some sort of patterns within, having a very hard time admitting. It feels like even to themselves that, because this doesn't feel like it's necessarily an inherently bad person or a complete narcissistic person. It feels like somebody that's leaned into their shadow as the result of things that they've not dealt with within themselves. It feels safest to kind of just keep everything at arm's length, because at arm's length, nothing gets in close enough to hurt them. And meanwhile, there's been the opportunity to kind of experience healing, a different kind of love, something that could sort of help to, you know, erase some of the scars that they're holding within. And instead of taking that leap of faith, that opportunity, they've almost pushed this connection away. They pushed that away from themselves, the very medicine that their soul has been craving for, or crying out for even, as wanted to kind of come through there. And so it's the idea of, they know deep inside that this is not right. To treat you like this, to treat another person like this is not right. That again speaks to the fact that this is not a full-blown narcissist. A full-blown narcissist would have no concept of the fact that what they're doing is wrong, that what they're doing is unfair. It feels like this person knows that, but they've chosen kind of the dark side within themselves. They've chosen this very ego-based approach, because there's kind of, it's either, you know, a fear of getting hurt in love again, a fear of letting anybody in, a fear of, you know, maybe a lack mentality, a fear of letting you see that side of themselves, you know, just whatever kind of the motivation or the excuse is. You know, it's something that it's got a stronghold on them. This, prior to even this connection with you, this feels like a pattern for them. This is something that sort of dates back a ways in time. And so, you know, this situation, again, you being the one to sort of break this pattern, break this cycle, this may be the change that kind of they've needed. Nobody else has stood up for them. They may be the kind of person that is kind of has many people they're stringing along, or a sense of kind of just burning bridges with individuals through kind of the nature of these dealings. And you know, people kind of just giving away their power and control to this individual in that sense. So you really are in a unique position to, you know, help yourself and in a certain way kind of teach this person that they need to also walk down that path to really help and heal themselves as well. They also say there's no greater love than yours. So that is that King of Cups energy where, you know, this is not somebody that is without feelings. They do have a heart, although it is locked pretty tightly inside themselves. It's guarded pretty heavily. You know, they're not currently sitting in the energy of the feeling space. Feelings are kind of also on the back burner, kind of on the equivalent of where they've sort of placed you in this connection. But again, there is this recognition here of, you know, with this gamble, with this risk, with this approach, to lose out in this situation, if you say enough is enough, and then that ends the story between the two of you, there's a recognition within them that a connection like this or a bond like this, however deep you were able to get with one another, or, you know, whatever kind of that cutoff point was in this situation, there's a sense of there was so much more that could have been experienced. It should have been so much more of a beautiful connection than it was allowed to be, or that they kind of allowed it to be up to this point in time, that they may not find a situation like this again. They may not find somebody like you again. They understand you as a rare individual. And so, you know, it's tough. There's a part of them that it's kind of like fighting to exit this sort of iron wall that they have around themselves. And yet at the same time, it's a long-standing coping mechanism to where, you know, they're still just holding on to that very tightly. And they also say, I want to come back home. So again, this could indicate that they might be reaching out, energetically. They're wanting to move back in a closer proximity, reaching out to have some kind of quick or short-term sort of reunion with you, but it's a sense of still just kind of wandering, being very estranged, being very without roots within themselves, very ungrounded within themselves. And so despite that kind of want, it doesn't feel that they're in a place to kind of take action in a positive and a productive way to kind of have that blissful homecoming. It may just be something that's kind of short-lived, or something that it just kind of yields the same patterns that you've been in with them. They also say you are not forgotten. So again, despite this very ego-based energy that they're really operating in shadow and distortion, they still have feelings for you inside, for whatever that's worth. They've not forgotten the good times. They've not forgotten this impact that you've made, even if it's something where their heart has really been stirred and that has triggered them in another direction. That's something that they've taken note of. As much as they're on like the defensive at this point in time, they see and understand that you had this profound effect upon them, and it's almost kind of complicating matters. It's making them cling even tighter to this defense mechanism, because it's the sense of like, here's this potential for something that could be very beautiful, and yet I keep getting in my own way. So a bit of frustration with that. They also say I have maturing to do. So they do recognize that, that this is not the best approach to take when it comes to matters of the heart. Squandering the gift of love when it is offered by the universe is not advisable ever for people. And it's something that they do understand that within themselves, but it feels like what you're dealing with, the version of this person that you've seen, this is the result of wreckage that they've had inside for quite some time. Not that it's an excuse, but it almost feels like something where, they kind of just, they shut something down within them. They didn't deal with some pain at some point in time, and it's just compounded. They've just been leading into this place of not letting anyone in too close, and the idea of kind of moving in a counterclockwise fashion, kind of doing something different in that circumstance. It fills them with a lot of terror. And they also say vulnerability is my weakness. So again, that energy of the lack mentality, not wanting to let you see too deeply inside at this brokenness, or this perception of brokenness. So they're definitely just feeling most comfortable kind of operating in a stance of ego, and kind of trying to be the one having all the control in the situation, which is why it's so crucial for you to be the one, if you're wanting change ultimately in this situation, or for yourself, most importantly and first and foremost, it feels like you're going to have to be the one to sort of react or respond or do something different in this situation from what has been the status quo up to this point in time. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got V, G, E, C, H, T, J, D, A, K, M, T, Y, H, O, C, M, B, and I. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, group 3. Chose the clear quartz heart, along with this rendition of the Lover's card and the Morgan-Greer tarot. So let's start by taking a look at if the person on your mind is missing you. Are they nostalgic for you and the connection at this time? Okay, so we have Wheel of Fortune, which is mutable energy, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. Eight of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And the Two of Wands, so more fire energy. So for some of you, there may be a third party currently involved in this situation. This person may be in another connection. Maybe both of you are in other connections. And with that being said, it's the idea of they're present in body in their physical circumstances, obviously, but in the relationship that they are physically in, or in that third party situation. But their thoughts are definitely directed towards you. They feel to be kind of, the wheels are turning in the direction of, they're not necessarily sure how to define the nature of their feelings for you at this point in time. It almost feels to be sort of the wedge of third-party situations, maybe even the third-party situation if there's no other romantic partner involved. This can be a friend group. This could be family members that don't approve of the connection. Maybe even the idea, that is based on reality or just as kind of a fear within. In the aftermath of kind of whatever's put the two of you in separation, it's almost the idea of, if they vented to other people, complained about you and the connection, maybe spoke badly about you and the connection, or there's a fear that you might have done that in regards to them, that there's some sort of a prohibition, or almost it's a cluttering energy here of, they don't know if they're allowed to feel nostalgia for you, that it's in some way they're almost thinking that it would be a little more complicated than just an I'm sorry. It's almost like there'd be a line of people they'd have to be making amends with in some way, or approval from other people in their lives they'd have to get before they could just move into the direction of, we're reconnecting with one another. There also may be kind of this fantasy sort of thinking here with this idea of the Wheel of Fortune, and then there's these two people sitting at the top, but then there's this third person that's kind of been kicked off, this third wheel, that it's almost, it's fantasies and longing about, in the perfect world, I would have made a different decision, kind of almost just wishing that divine intervention with this huge kind of hand from the clouds cranking the wheel would take place, and third party situations on either or both your sides would just sort of fall away, and then it could be kind of an open or a linear path towards one another. That's the nature of kind of where they're sitting with things. There's still a lot of attraction towards you. There's a lot of curiosity towards you. It feels to be something that they try not to look at you. They try not to think too long. It feels to be something that they almost are trying to focus on other things, maybe because of third-party situations. They don't necessarily have the free ability to just sit around and fantasize about a reconnecting or a reunion with you. They may be with someone who's kind of jealous or possessive, or just very much like in their business in some way. There's a sense of almost kind of like cloaked or guardedness about this. Like they're very concerned with like other people perceiving in some way feelings that they have for you, or a desire to move towards you. Maybe something that if you come up in conversation for any reason, then they try to just be very stoic, very unbothered, no reaction. But inside, it's very different. It's Eight of Wands. It's powerful momentum inside. But it's almost like they're sitting in a passive stance, feeling that their fate is sealed, that destiny or choice has kind of moved you both in other directions. Now there's other complications, or kind of the way in which the situation has unraveled unravel. It is further complicated matters to where the very idea of like them saying to themselves, am I nostalgic for this person? Yes, there are these intense and enduring feelings that have never gone away. But is that something that could be anything more than just a sensation within? There's a lot of this involvement on kind of the surface level clutter is something which causes them to almost, these feelings, it feels like they almost have been stuffed into their shadow in some way, to where it may be resulting in the fact that there's a lot coming up by way of just sort of sporadic kind of visions, maybe of the two of you in the past, these memories, things coming up in the dream space, a lot of communication energetically speaking while they are very fixed and focused on their material world, on their material reality. They're there in body and in whatever these circumstances are, but then there's like a part of them that has been left in the past with you. It's left on kind of this other plane of existence where happily ever after has already occurred between the two of you. And so there is this energy of like a disconnect here. There's two versions of them. And again, and whatever the exact details and nature of those circumstances are, in some way, like other people, other interferences, real or perceived, are in some way kind of limiting or causing them to just sort of like stuff and suppress, to not feel too deeply in, except for what is almost uncontrollable, energetically speaking. These waves of sort of truth that wash over them, that kind of take them into this more out-of-body state where they're sort of going through the motions of their day-to-day reality. Everything's fine. They're fine with the separation. They're fine with, whatever that third party sort of energy looks like. And then all of a sudden they're sort of overcome with this wave that sort of surfaces up from the shadow, from where they've really repressed this, a sense of not feeling good with how circumstances have ended, not feeling good with how they left things. The distance doesn't feel good between the two of you. Again, kind of hopes and prayers, kind of wishing on a star sort of energy that the universe would step in and kind of do this cleanup work for them, or do the dirty work for them, to sort of collapse other situations in their life or in your life that stand in the way of actually feeling these feelings. It's the idea of like, if we could run away with one another and not have to explain anything to anybody, that knew about sort of what we were to one another in the past and how it fell apart, then it would be the sense of, okay, then I'll admit to myself, or I'll allow myself to fully feel this desire that I still have for you. So somebody who's kind of, it feels like really sleepwalking through their life at this particular point in time. It's these kind of uncontrollable rushes and waves of like longing and yearning and nostalgia, but then it very quickly sort of collides with the present material reality of the choices they've made and the results that have kind of unfolded from that point, or choices that they've made and kind of ways in which you've taken steps in a new direction. A lot of also that may be very unknown. Rather than kind of having eyes on you in some way, they're almost kind of at a loss. It's a blank slate. They don't know what's going on in your life. They don't know if you're seeing anyone. They don't know if you're still with that other partner. They have chosen not to seek out that information because in some way it's just too complicated at this point, or maybe in general, to kind of evolve the situation. That's how they've been holding it at this particular point in time. So if they're leaning into that energy of nostalgia, it's very much, it's an uncontrolled sort of reaction. It's something where it almost feels like their soul goes into mutiny, and forces them to kind of feel this very deep and profound reality that in some way there's unfinished business here, or they're moving in the wrong direction, or things that they kind of have just not owned within themselves, or were not even very truthful and honest about in the first place. This could definitely be the energy of somebody who denied feelings for you all along. There was a window of opportunity. This could be kind of like failure to launch, false start sort of energy here, and they've just been carrying on. They've just been pressing on, but they keep being drawn back to that crossroads moment, and a sense of, you should have opened that door. You should have chosen the path of love rather than the path of fear. and the intensity and weight of that, it's heavy, it sits with them, but it's almost something where they feel very powerless to do anything about it. And so it's kind of just, they keep just sort of pushing it down and stuffing it down into the subconscious, into the shadow, and kind of trying as best as possible to go through the motions of their reality that they have in front of them at this point in time. But it's not very successful. They keep being kind of, they keep finding themselves sort of drifting into this energy of like reminded of you, almost feeling your energy sort of cloaking them in a way, or circling around them, or it'll be like a series of synchronicities and signs that just bombard them, that bring them back to this reality of some unfinished business in this circumstance and situation. But it doesn't feel like anything where they're really consciously kind of indulging in that. I'm gonna carve time out of my day. I'm gonna take this very deliberate action into this sacred space within, where I'm feeling my emotions and I'm longing for this person. And yet, energetically speaking, that level of denial, or that choice, it's a very different story that the soul is kind of speaking to them. So this is a person that's at odds with themselves. It feels like in many different ways. There's kind of everything is sort of off kilter with them. What they're going through the motions with, where they are going through the motions of their life with, where they are emotionally, kind of intellectually, viscerally, sort of what they truly yearn for in all ways in their life, who they are as a person, even in terms of their authenticity at the soul level. Even the feelings that they have here that have been unopened, unprocessed, some kind of opportunity or deep soul connection that just was never properly given the time and attention that it deserves. And this is something, it's almost like you and the situation haunt them. So rather than being very nostalgic, it's something that it's intense. They don't know what to do with it. It's very much at odds with kind of the life they've constructed for themselves. And so all they can do is just kind of like push it away, and it keeps surfacing. So with that in mind, let's take a look and see what, if anything, are they going to do about this very intense and kind of unstoppable force with the Eight of Wands here, in terms of the nature of these feelings, this magnetism and draw towards you. Okay, so we have music, harmony, island, solitude, by the book, and no place like home. So with this energy of solitude and no place like home, with this little house up here on the Shepherd's Crook, there may be something that kind of falls apart. If there's a romantic third party in this situation on their end that is sort of this obvious obstacle that is causing them to sort of feel that, not even so much that it's forbidden fruit, it's guilty pleasure in terms of the nature of these feelings, but just in practical terms, there's nothing they could do about it at this particular point in time. And so it would almost be too painful to allow themselves to sit in nostalgia and yearning. It does feel that this wave of momentum, almost getting tapped on the shoulder by this energy of, you're going the wrong way. It feels like this momentum pushes them to make some sort of change in terms of their domestic situation, maybe even a connection that already was sort of rocky. They've just been going through the motions, through a sense of duty and obligation, familiarity, kind of, they've been suffering in silence for a long time. And it feels like most likely what would occur is something kind of erodes in that situation starts to really crumble and fall apart, which may open up the possibility kind of further down the road in the future for a reconnection between the two of you, and an openness in which harmony is established and is able to be maintained or explored in a way which just has not been possible up to this point in time. But it almost requires them sort of what they're going to do about this. And again, this is almost just energetically, they're kind of motivated by something at the soul level that is like compelling them, not just in the direction of you, but it feels like another life for themselves in a general and broad sense than kind of what they've been settling for, what they've been living in. This, all these little elephants here, this kind of family of elephants can also speak to, family that has influence over them, friends that have an influence over them. It's a sense of deferring kind of their own happiness, almost in a people-pleasing mentality or a bit of codependency that inspired or sort of uplifted, again, not consciously motivated by, but energetically supported by what wants to really kind of launch between the two of you, what wants to be revisited, what wants to be explored in depth, helps to urge them to a place of kind of disconnecting or setting up some better boundaries with these other kind of individuals, stepping more into their place of personal sovereignty, really starting to ask big important questions, kind of outside of the box things for this person, rather than sort of the expectations others have of them or society has for them, or what they've kind of expected for themselves and have settled for in many ways in their life. Maybe it's even just kind of living under the thumb of sort of the expectations of, what their family wants for them, or kind of what their friends are doing, any way in which they've been sort of squandering their own autonomy. It feels to be something that they start with that. They start with some work within themselves, which ultimately leads to the potential, again, further down the road, of some sort of reconnection between the two of you, something where there can be a peace offering, something to where they're fighting this energy a little less. They're kind of allowing themselves to dip down into that heart space. It's something that they do, or that may just kind of erode or be sort of pushed out of their life, that's been kind of rockier. It hasn't really been serving their highest good up to this point in time, that clears the space where they then allow themselves to dip into the energy of nostalgia, to consciously kind of address and recognize and own these feelings they may have stuffed, suppressed, or denied for quite some time. So it's almost kind of like a journey within, or some sort of truth-telling within, maybe even descending into a bit of a dark night of the soul. This Eight of Wands almost feels to speak about kind of somebody who may have really been awakened. This could definitely be a twin flame dynamic also with the two wands right here. And they've been kind of avoiding the process of the spiritual awakening up to this point in time. You may have chosen to sort of go down the route of, you're experiencing the dark night of the soul, you've healed, you've ascended, you've grown, and this person just sort of chose to continue to entertain sort of the 3D version of themselves. It feels that something really collapses or gives way in terms of that. No matter how much time has passed by, it's the fact that they're almost separate from the potential between the two of you in a large way. They've been kind of energetically shown in some manner that they've been living an inauthentic life. They've not been living in accordance to their highest purpose, or they've been settling for less than they're capable of, or less than they deserve in many different ways. So it feels like a process of personal unfoldment opens the door to something where they're actually able to admit and feel these feelings through this process of like diving deeply within the shadow and becoming the light in their own darkness. They're then able to admit to themselves and fully step into that sense of, I have feelings for this person and I'm nostalgic, rather than stuffing it away or just finding themselves kind of swept up in these feelings, in this sensation, kind of cloaked in your energy, and then sort of batting it away in order to try to refocus on what they have going on in the material world. Their actions towards you are really an action deeply within themselves, sort of collapsing into or surrendering into. It's bringing to mind almost with this house on the Shepherd's Crook as well, like a tower moment that happens, that is very illuminating for them. Things that may occur in their life, or steps that they take that really brings a house of cards down. People showing their true colors, or just steps in the direction of doing that work within that help to illuminate other ways in which, not just in this situation, but in other aspects of their life, they've been headed in the wrong direction. And so it feels to be something that's more of a long-term energy in terms of what they'll do about it by way of measurable change towards you. That might be further down the road, but they feel to be kind of on the brink or the precipice of taking a crucial step deeply within themselves to break free of some patterns, which opens them up to be able to come into more of a place of balance and harmony within themselves, owning their feelings, exploring these feelings, the full range of feelings, things about you in this connection, other things in their life that they have stuff suppressed or denied, or ways in which they've really sort of squandered potential, or not lived in accordance with kind of the truth of their heart and soul. All of this is really subject to change for them. So a process of like personal growth and evolution that ultimately might lead to, some kind of restoration, or it almost feels like if this was a false start, or it didn't really get off the ground, or, maybe even just something where, if this is a twin flame connection, you could have had this intense sort of introductory period with one another, and then things got triggered. The bridge was burned between the two of you. There may have been kind of like things said in the heat of anger, or, in a triggered stance, either to one another or to other people in both of your lives, or there's a fear of that as well. There's a need to kind of detach from all these outside influences, to come home to self first and foremost, in order to be able to truly feel and experience and own the full depth of what has been awakened within them through that initial connection point with you, which then opens kind of the door to change that might be possible a little bit further down the road, for the two of you, in terms of like a reunion or coming back together sort of energy. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see what they want you to know at this time. Okay, and they say together with you was pure bliss. So you definitely represent a paradigm shift for them in terms of what they've been used to in partnerships and connection, things that have stirred and awakened within them in terms of feelings and sensations that are very outside of the box for them, very much in conflict with kind of how they've been raised, what they've known love to be like, up to this point in time, where they really could have been triggered and frightened back into some sort of a comfort zone, a fear of like, what would people think about this connection, even if on the surface, there was nothing that unusual or out of the ordinary about the two of you as a couple or as a potential couple. It almost feels to be sort of a self-consciousness about the nature and intensity of what was really stirred and awakened within, and a recognition of like, this is something unlike what I've experienced before. Maybe even sort of a lot of signs and synchronicities that came up that really sort of spooked this person. They didn't know what was going on. It was very intense. A lot of psychic, phenomenon happening, or kind of psychic gifts awakening, and they sort of shut that down by retreating into the comfort zone, getting in line, falling in line with sort of the 3D mundane self. And meanwhile, there's kind of this process that has been really kickstarted or activated within. That's that Eight of Wands that keeps swimming up from the soul level to more of their surface reality, to their awareness of, this is something you need to deal with. This is something that it's been turned on. There's no turning it off. And so that kind of ties into the idea of, needing to go into this kind of dark night of the soul, kicking down the house of cards, allowing themselves to collapse into that place where rebirth is possible. They also say this break is hard for me. So it is taking a lot of willpower and effort to, again, sort of sweep these waves of energy into their shadow, into their subconscious. It takes a lot of effort on their part. It feels like as time continues to go on, this urge to sort of move in another direction, both in terms of this connection and in terms of their life in general, it gets harder and harder to resist that. They're getting closer and closer to that point of just letting it all fall apart and really, exploring and allowing themselves to envision and to become a different version of them that may have been part of kind of the nature of your soul contract with one another. And they also say, I admit I was wrong, wrong and strong. So they are very well aware that a choice that was made not to explore this connection further, not to invest in you, how they handled the situation in the aftermath of the two of you going into separation with one another, that this was not the right way to handle it, that it has created all of these other problems involving other people in any sort of way. Choosing a low vibrational partner, maybe returning to an ex-partner because it was something comfortable, familiar, and known, didn't carry all the spiritual and kind of psychic components of this connection, that this has kind of led them in a wrong direction, and they feel very weighted down. It's a very strong feeling of the fate has been sealed. And with that is kind of this part of them that wrestles to break free, is sort of where they're at right now. And they also say vulnerability is my weakness. So they're having a hard time sort of letting go of the comfort zone. They may have a hard time in general kind of opening up about emotions, particularly fear-based emotions, which is not easy for anybody to talk about, to kind of admit that, sense of being scared or being very overwhelmed. So in a lot of ways, this connection really challenges them to sort of take down the wall, take down that guard around themselves, and open up in a way that they're not used to doing with themselves, they're not used to doing with other people. There's a sense of feeling that to move towards you or towards this connection would kind of make them a castaway from their life, or maybe some social circle, disapproval on the part of their family, fear as well that maybe there could be people on your side of the equation who might not think so positively about them. It might not be such a warm welcome if they were to just show up at your door. All of that makes them feel very vulnerable and very much at a loss as far as what they could offer to the situation now at this point, which is kind of that motivation for just stuffing that all away into the shadow. They also say, I will find my way back to you. So this is tying into that idea at the soul level, something that is stirring, something that is really wanting to sort of breach the surface of how they've been choosing to move through their life up to this point in time, or at that, as a result of that kind of crossroads point where they chose not to invest in this connection, to turn away from this, not open that door and explore it. There is this deep understanding that on a fundamental level they have deprived themselves of a very beautiful experience and something that is very rare, something that's very, exceptional, something that keeps kind of calling them back in, something that keeps haunting them despite their best efforts to sort of stuff it down and, redirect the focus elsewhere. And so it's almost the sense of that it's inevitable the two of you will have some sort of reunion. As much as they have prolonged this up to this point in time, there's a higher knowing that they have that your paths are meant to cross again. They also say, I'm waiting for the right time. So again, that sense of fate and destiny at play in this situation, knowing that the story is not over between the two of you, feeling very disempowered as far as what to do to really create that change at this point in time, feeling very much at a lack as far as the circumstances of their life, your life, whatever that sort of disconnect period between the two of you looked like, and this can also really tie into the idea of other things that they need to close out, other sort of connections and situations that they need to take their power back from or remove entirely from their world, from their reality, before they can truly be in a place of seriously thinking and allowing themselves to feel these feelings. At this point in time, it's almost just the feelings that they have about you and about this connection are in direct contrast to sort of the duty and obligation that they have elsewhere. They also say, I want to cry, but I can't. So this can tie into the idea of if there's third-party situations involved, they can't get into their emotional body. They can't sit there and feel these feelings. They can't experience nostalgia. They may already be under the microscope of the third-party situation, or and just there wouldn't be a way to kind of justify that if they were sitting in this energy of longing and nostalgia. It also ties into the idea of how this may be a coping mechanism for them in general, that they are needing to sort of work through something they learned from childhood, might have been ingrained within them through their upbringing. As kind of difficult experiences happen, you just stuff it down and move forward. And so there's a lot that's unprocessed, unactualized in this situation that they're needing to really untangle within themselves before they're able to seriously sit in the energy of feeling these feelings and then coming up with some kind of plan of action to do something about them. And they also say, I'm a lost soul. So this ties into somebody who's right on the precipice of a dark night of the soul. There may already be sort of things that are collapsing in their life at this point. It's sort of a down energy. They're on sort of a downward spiral, energetically, emotionally, literally at this particular point in time, but it almost feels to be something, it's a necessary darkness. They need to wander around in that darkness in order to become and find the light within themselves, find the truth that they had, chosen to sort of turn away from in the past, or that they've really been denying, in relation to the truth of their feelings about you, how they've been living their life up to this point in time, what they've been prioritizing, ways in which they've been giving away their power. There's a need to sort of take back that power, collect their missing pieces from where they've left them in all these different experiences, or where they've kind of given these away to other influences and people in their life. So definitely a process of kind of that journey within, a journey of going through the process of ascension, which may on the other side of that lead to some change between the two of you in the future. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name if you were this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got D, I, T, W, T, H, B, I, L, U, K, Q, Y, E, P, H, X, J, N, and M. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.